Welcome to Tuesday LIGHTBOB TV episode number 9. Today we're going to talk about future-proof fixture for 2030. Um, I had this concept of a show for a while, and I thought, well, what would it look like in 2030? What are the fixtures are going to look like? And how today in our market, what is it going to take to drive us there? So, um, in our to continue in our circation lighting segment, um, I'd like to take this episode and dedicate this episode for all the work that has been done, and also try to open the eyes and welcome new talent and new ideas for the future, and how us, like people that are specifying, that are working, that are how we can help, and how I can contribute to that motion, because it's very easy to point the finger and said you, but once we point the finger, there's three finger pointing at us, and it's important to take that part of responsibility, and also add to the program, meaning that we have a responsibility because we every day are in the field, we are working with different manufacturers, and if we don't provide the feedback and if we don't help them to elevate their standard, nobody will. I mean, yes, they do have engineers. Yes, they have, expansion team. Yes, they have a gazillion people working to create this motion and selling fixtures. But we are in the field. We are bombarded by all the manufacturers, not just one. So our responsibility is to start spreading this good news about, okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? So this is what this segment today is. And also what I wanted to do was to create a transition from yesterday. Yesterday we talked about the source. So today we're talking about the fixtures, like the physical fixtures. And again, those fixtures have either two functions. Either they're directional or they are general diffuse. So we always keep that in mind when we're thinking about fixtures, and we always start to enhance and say, okay, how can we take this to the next level, to the next level, to the next level? It's very funny because I was reading a feed this weekend, or yesterday, about somebody that was looking for fixtures, and every fixtures that other people would submit, she said, "Oh yeah, I look at this company. Oh yeah, I look at this company. Oh yeah, I look at this company. Well, what about this? Well, no, I'm not interested." Why do you ask? Like that was my thought. I was like, why don't you talk with the manufacturer you like and tell them exactly what you need to help elevate their product? You don't like their optics? Well, look for an optical company, bring it in and say, hey, what about we doing a venture? What about you working with this company? Maybe you can start developing a better optic. Maybe you can start, or a chipset, or. But, going around fishing for anything, you get nothing. Anyway, so today I'm gonna try to bring you up onto what I think is the future. And again, I don't represent anybody, but I think the future of PoE infrastructure permits a lot of functions and a lot of technology embedded into our fixtures, which are just plug in, and then with the inside board, inside logic, and inside infrastructure can give us a very wide array of features. And we'll look at that as we go today. So in my mind, if the source, if the fixtures, if the source, I mean, become intelligent, then our lighting fixtures are no longer passive. Let's think. Let's think for a second. So like yesterday, we talked about having the source more and more intelligent, having more technology, having more uh, sensors and function. So, if the source is intelligent, then our fixture, which is the casing, they're not just there sitting anymore. They're not just passive. They become more, they become more an intelligent piece of hardware. So, because they embrace the source, now they have this intelligency inside, and they become part of all those intelligent nodes. So every fixtures is becoming a node that's controlled, and then from fixture to fixture, they're attached to a platform which is hardwired, and then it gives us the opportunity to be future proof, because our fixtures now have the capability of growing, and as the same thing as our LED. I remember the first LED, white LED I worked with, um, didn't produce, well, it did produce light if you had all the light closed and if you were in a closet and if you had the right battery and not overdrive it, because it would melt. But the technology of LED and the technology of smart board that are controlling our LED technology and fed by the PoE will evolve as the research keep growing, and as new features being developed, as new players are coming in, as technology become miniaturized and smaller. So more and more our system that we design become future proof, because now it's not a question of having a source that it will be obsolete. It's a question of having a smart source that we can unplug and plug another smart source. And let's say we come to an amazing new protocol. Well, we can unplug the source, we can unplug the switch, and then upgrade the switch, upgrade the fixtures, and now we have an upgraded system. And hallelujah. uh, so, and the reason why I came to that path is because I was remembering how I used to design system 20, 25 years ago, and how they were all hardwired with one cable or two. Um, um, what I mean by one cable is like either a 12-14 or a 12-2, because some of the run were long, and then they would be daisy chain in parallel to all the other fixtures. So I was thinking that even if, let's say, I have an amazing system, let's say a power line carrier controller, well, I still have to modify everything along the line. And that becomes a lot of work. But if I have an architecture with low voltage and Cat6, I can probably evolve for another 25, 30 years without changing or start thinking changing the cable. Because right now, everything I did, up to a couple years ago, and everything I wire into line voltage is obsolete, is absolutely obsolete. Yes, I can swap a fixture for another. I can patch in a wire control, Wi-Fi, whatever control to it, but it's still just a patching job. It doesn't bring me into 2030 or in the future. So what I'm trying to say is that since we already have the data, we have the power, and we have a board, there's nothing, in the upcoming generation to have, let's say, an occupancy sensor, which is another little electronic device, a daylight sensor, which is just a little cell. Probably we could even embed on that same board, from those next generation fixtures, environmental monitoring, like vibration. We can have heat. We can have all kinds of different sensor embedded on this. So now these fixtures don't become they don't just are a passive fixtures or just limited to that. They become very becoming a data point. Now we have all the data that's coming out of it. They're not just emitting light, but they're collecting data that and they also respond to information, meaning they're two-way communicating. We're overeating. This LED is going to the end of its cycle. We have one failure. Last week I told you I was in a show, and the guy showed me a little bulb about this big. I mean, it was very, very small. And he said, do you know what those bulb does? First of all, I never seen a bulb like this. It was very powerful, but he said this bulb has a chip in it and tells the controller with power line that if one of them is burned on the line, it tells which one it is. And I thought, well, this is amazing. This is where nanotech is going. This is where miniaturization is going. And there's also something that I didn't talk about, and I did because I was doing some research on Li-Fi. Okay, it's light, fi signal by light, and those new generation of fixtures become very easy to integrate Li-Fi in it, Li-Fi, because now all it is an additional LED, or it's just the way that our LED are configured and programmed on the board directly. And now we can start to have data transmission. I mentioned something about Wi-Fi and all those, and those are like invisible, radio wave we have around. Li-Fi is something that we see. In the chain of safetiness and readiness, and Wi-Fi is more elaborate and it's more, I could say, popular. Li-Fi is at the beginning of its life, but as far also as radiation, we don't emit any radiation because it's just light wave that is coming out. And it could be debated night and day. So that's why I don't get into a conflict. I'm just saying that my vision of future lighting is we have a wire. Why don't we have as much information out of this wire instead of using the architecture? So now we have light as data transmission. So not only our fixture are emitting light, but they're becoming a communication device. They're becoming a high-speed, secure, localized data network. And this is big, because how do you hack a Li-Fi network? It's not like we have a Wi-Fi and it goes out and people can stay there underneath with their phone. It's the level of security is also a bit better. I'm not going to say it's better, worse, whatever. It's just a little bit better, because unlike Wi-Fi, it doesn't go through walls. If you have 4 walls and the light is contained into this room, this is where you're going to have access to your network. If I have Wi-Fi, I can just go outside this window, even if I put a plastic in front of it, and I can sit on the other side and hack the system. So again, additional, and I was thinking about that because like I told you, I've been doing all this research on system for home. And yesterday I was at my home and I was thinking, and I was trying some different circadian lighting bulbs and systems and switch and all of that. And then you have to download an app from you don't know where. And then you have to go on your Wi-Fi system. You have to give them your password. You have to also get in your phone. So at the end of the exercise, I felt like my security at home was totally insufficient. Just by trying to install these lights, it made me realize that I have two gamers in my house, and these guys are like gaming with God knows who. Uh, and one of my son's a professional gamer, and my brother-in-law too. And we have fiber optics, so that's good. But still, my wife worked from home. I work from home. So now we're all on the same network. So this morning, I told my wife, I said, babe, we need to have another network for working, at home and be isolated so that if one of those things happen to be hacked, one of our, gamers get hacked, they don't have access to our working data. Or if right now my level of knowledge as far as security for lighting control is not as proficient that I wish. And that's what I was thinking too. I was like, okay, so now I got to put the lighting system on a different network, the gamers on a different one, and on a totally separate network router, put our work so that we can start managing our vulnerability. And this came because the last company I had, I was working with, I was doing some government contract, and they have a very specific way that you have to divide your network. So at the office, I have no problem, but when it comes at home, because it's home, I didn't really, I didn't really think about it. And now that last night I was doing all these tests with these companies and these fixtures and these bulbs, it really dawned on me like, oh, I gotta apply this safe security technology at home too. So talking about, just to end up on what I was telling you about the network, and the device, we have access to, we can create with fixtures modular design, right? We can replace component. We can replace lighting fixture. We can replace switch. You take it out, you unplug, you plug a new one. Fixture, boom, next. We don't need drivers anymore. So now we don't have to worry about compatibility. Is this driver, do I have a shelf full of driver that, in 6 months, a year, or 2 years are going to be obsolete? No, we don't need those, right? Because now everything is on the board. Same thing with the light engine. Okay, we have a minimum stock of light engine because with our board, we can bring all this range of color. We can go from 2800 to 7,000 or 6,000 Kelvin, or very low and warm color to very high and bright and cold color. And in between, we can also add the red, green, and blue spectrum with other LED. And since it's just a system that it's designed on the PC board, now we can control them easier. So, and of course, at the end, we also have the optics. Because our product are getting smaller, they have less hardware, then we can have better optics. Maybe we can swap and have, wow. So all of this is happening, very, very quickly. So now also what we have to think about is okay, now we have the fixtures and it's working. We got it down to an art. Now we need to have some software layer, right? And we got to integrate with a software. Like I said, we can work with open source. We can have compatibility. We can have API. We can do. I mean, there's a whole um, array of software integration we can do, and then that brings, of course, on the back door some firmware update, and then system adaptability over time. Because let's say you are your main system is Crestron. Well, maybe now they don't have all the patch and all the adapter to have your PoE lighting, but eventually they will have their own version of it, and so forth. So companies will come in and help you, and if everybody does what they're good at, the market will rise, and the product quality will go up. So when we're talking about PoE native fixtures, of course they're designed for low voltage, right? And also we know that being in the family of a network-based power, um, it's not traditional fixture don't fit on those. We cannot just take a 12-volt fixture and say, oh, we're going to plug on PoE. Well, fortunately, we do have adapters we can put at the end of the PoE, and then we can drive. But we have a certain uh, um, array of command. We can turn them on and off. We don't have like full intelligence yet, but it does. Some manufacturer does have adapter that we can connect to sources. As long as they're between the range of 12 to 24 volt, we're pretty much do. So now we're looking at this and we say the lighting fixtures is not any longer a product. We're not selling a box. We're selling a connected device, and connected with wires, not just try to upload a software, try to find the gateway, have the light flash 10 times, then, try to get your signal, have your Wi-Fi connect on your phone. No, you plug it in and it's work. It's a closed system. Well, actually, it's not a closed system, but it is a closed system. You just plug it in and it start working. So you don't have to go and wait and hope. And I cannot tell you how much frustration I had in the past month trying all these products, but it was a very enlightening journey. And some people think about the whole process, and some just think about their own, desire of selling products. So, and when I talk about this, I also like to mention that some are, you can see that they think in upgradable technology. Some are just like, this is what it is, and you do whatever. And you're also very you'll be hardware dependent. If you don't download this hub key, and if you don't have this little hub, nothing works. And once you have that, then you can pair it with your other device that are home access point, meaning Alexa, Apple, or even what's the other one? Amazon, Alexa, whatever. There's Google. So those are the three main that I've been testing, and So now, as a manufacturer, we see that the potential is there. Now, where do we start? How do we start this? Well, it's very simple. You start with what you have, and then what's easy for you and what you know. And then you build a team around yourself. You go around and you talk to people. Trade shows are normally the best place, and you survey what the market is doing. If everybody's doing keypads and PoE switch, and well, you know that this market is, well, it's gonna evolve. There's some traction there. Now maybe you can start working on something that is compatible, or that will complement this system. So, and the fixture is the same thing. You don't need to have all your catalog transformed. What I suggest you do is you start with a general diffuse and a directional. And then those are your two key products that you're going to promote. You're going to start putting in projects. And even if they're loss leader, you can start, putting them in different projects so that you get the experience for yourself. And as you will go, you'll start integrating sensor. You'll start to integrate more connectivity. You will start to integrate more building, automation. And. So the way we were specifying fixtures in 2005 and 2015 and 2020 is very different from what we're going to be specifying fixtures in 2030. And I want you to think about that and think of your company, how they're going to specify your light in 2030. Because this is going to happen that you want it or not. And like I said, it's a gradient. So what happened to a building when the fixtures are not evolving? Well, people don't want to be there. Why? Because you have the choice. You pay the same rent for two buildings, one that gives you all these benefits and the other one that it's, from 2005, and you'll see that may as well go there, because it goes with, not only because it's got all the new feature, but also it gives you this this advanced technology. It also helps you to have your staff more productive, and also at the end of the day, you feel better. You walk into a building and you feel better, and maybe you don't, but lighting contribute to it. The other one, you have fixture flashing, you have some of them that don't work, and we all been to part of that problem. I can speak for myself, because there's nothing that tells the maintenance that these fixtures are about to fail. But if you have a new fixtures with new technology, it may be in the same area. Let's say you have a 40-foot ceiling. There's 3 fixtures because reason XYZ that are about to fail. Well, all you have to do is call, get, check your warranty, say I need a new board, whatever, replacement, or purchase them if they've been there for a few years. And then you bring the scissor lift during the night shift, you replace these 3 fixtures, and everything is there. And by the way, those fixtures have been also upgraded. They have new feature, they have new sensors, they have this, they have that. And on the computer, because you updated the software, it reads it, and now it gives you more data. And now you realize that the temperature at 40 feet is way higher, and there's no ventilation and there's no air exchange, and you can talk to the building system, and now they can adjust the ventilation with the AC and increase the life of the new fixture and the old fixtures. So the contribution of the fixture is not only the light, it's everything that brings it around this new ecosystem. So now let's see what let's say we want to talk about the future. What would that look like? Have a future ready infrastructure. What would be the strategy that we would use, right? So we would get some fixtures that are smart, right? Even the decorative, maybe we could have some smart bulbs, and ideally we would have to probably have some kind of a PoE system, and then have the proper software to that, you can upgrade and put up to date, and that will keep you to your system to work longer, right? And as the fixture cycles start to evolve, and maybe you have some of them that you need to change because over time they got, and you get the same type of fixtures, you get the same uh, cabling, you just change the fixtures and it had more feature, and your software has them, then your system also is adapting and is evolving. So your current specification now have to adapt over time, so that your investment that you're doing here, it doesn't become an expense for later. Meaning that yes, you're gonna invest, or you're gonna put the time to search and have a technology that's probably the same price as the one that you have today. When you look at one and the others, with the saving of installation, saving of material, saving of time. So the package will be the same, but you won't have the expense later if you want to upgrade, if you want to, make it better. All you're gonna have to do is just work on, okay, what's the update for the software? What's the firmware? Now, if our project, I'll talk for me, integrates smart fixtures, those fixtures for me needs to participate in the ecosystem. So when I'm going to be looking for the software, I'm going to make sure that not only it answers to the question today, but also it talks with the other system, security. It talks with HVAC. It talks with building management. It talks also with the circadian, so that when I do my lighting, programming, I know that if I can use the security sensors and nobody has been on the floor for so much time, they can start to go at 50%. And if there's really nobody, they can go down, and then the night light can come on. So I want to make sure that my new specification is also, contributing to the others. And the same thing when, let's say, somebody from the AC comes to do a repair or maintenance. They need to go change filter. Well, the sensors are going to sense that there's somebody on the space. They're going to turn the light on and then turn the light on. And they don't need to turn the whole floor, because my technician goes from the elevator to the middle of the building, or to the window on the east side. The whole floor doesn't need to be turned on. All I need to do is give him a path of light, and if ever I see a movement that he's going from one window to the other window to the other window to the other window because he's doing reading, well, I can recognize a pattern, and also the system can follow his movement. And since we have intelligent fixtures on and on, they are following. Now, what does that to the power? Well, indirectly, you will be saving a lot of power. You're going to be saving a lot of other a lot of power first. Why? Because some area are not turned on. Because also, like when you need it, they're there. Plus, every little component that is not on the food chain to light up. You don't have a driver on board that generating heat. You don't have a device that is generating heat that needs to be powered. And those millivolt and milliamps and those milliwatt of heat are very, very insignificant when you look at each device independently. When you have a tower, you have 100 floors and you have 10,000 units, it start to become significant. And that's why when I started to look at the different technology, I realized how, you know, the contribution of each of these little devices, is never written anywhere, never factor. But at the end of the day, when we look what was promised and what's happening in real time, there's always a discrepancy. Our energy saving audit will say, well, you're going to be saving that much power. Then we receive our hydro bill. And I'm not saying that, all the hydro companies are very, honest about it, but there's a discrepancy. So now, where did it go wrong? Well, all those little things adding up power and not able to be monitoring. Now, imagine if your smart system says this month you consume exactly 75 kilowatt of electricity with the lighting. Now, you know exactly how much the lighting system consumes. Why? Because inside of each fixtures, there was a little sensor, and they were monitoring this, sending the data, and making sure that everything is working together. So what happens if we don't do anything? Well, if we don't do anything, we don't have to worry about anything, except we're not contributing, we're not making our part. And also, we're missing out on a very exciting opportunity to bring our building more intelligent, to bring our building more responsive, to bring our building, and then when I say building, I would say most of all our projects, because that we do building for residential, commercial, industrial. There's nothing like having any of these building data driven. And also, we know that we are in the motion of evolving. We are in the motion of getting things better and better and more optimal and adding more sensors. A couple months ago, I was in an automation show, and I was totally blown away to see where the sensor technology has become is at. You have these little sensors that you put on motors for vibration. You have some that you put on hinges, some that you put on structure. The monitoring is mind-blowing on how refined it becomes, and how much data you get that you can optimize and save energy and money. So, as a lighting manufacturer, we were never taught that we could be part of this, especially in an industrial setting. We were told that our fixture needs to have so much power so that these tasks that can be done easily. But we were never part of the conversation, the big boys conversation, on how our contribution can also be integrated to other things, and how our contribution can increase the biological effect of the body, and how that increase the production, how that increase the morale, how that increase in dollars at the end of the year. So our responsibility is growing, and now we have a choice. We can choose any fixture we want, or we can choose a PoE. We can choose a PoE with sensor integrated, and start to build our modular system and have a software that's upgradable, and everything else as a long-term solution is not viable, unfortunately, because we're going to have to join the movement. We have the choice. Employees are harder and harder to get. The more empowerment we give them, the longer they're going to stay with us, and the longer they will work, and the longer they'll be productive. So that you're working from home, you're working in a hotel or an office or even in a factory, the environment now is just no longer, well, okay, that's fine, that will do it. Put the cheapest fixtures, and as long as we have the requirement, foot candle on the floor, that's it. We have a choice. Our employees have choice, and it's part of the next evolution. So in 2030, I think we have amazing opportunity to shine. We have amazing opportunity to start taking the lead as manufacturers, and also, there is different opportunity right now, in designing fixtures. And like I said, you don't need to change your whole catalog. You can start with two, and then see how it goes, and survey and increase. Tomorrow we're gonna, although I started to talk about manufacture today, tomorrow we're gonna go a little deeper with the manufacturers, and I will also, I have something very exciting to tell you about, and so yeah, so